Yes, so my mother and I never had a real sex conversation, right?
Yeah.
It was, hey, sometimes it rains, and when it rains, you know what? You want to make sure you don't get wet, because if you get wet, things can happen that you may be stuck with for the rest of your life.
Oh my God. Sometimes it rains.
Thanks, Mom. I appreciate you telling me to wear a condom. Yes, I've I'm almost 30. I don't have any children yet, so it's work. Thank
right.
you. But as far as having the conversation of what do you say? How far do you go? You know what I mean? Like I look forward to when I have children actually having that conversation. For one, if I have a son, being able to tell him, hey, shit, back in my day, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then also teaching a daughter, like, hey, here's what the fuck I was like young.
Right.
Don't you can get better than this. I promise you. And you can get better than this from that same guy who's willing to give you bullshit
Right.
if you love yourself enough and you know yourself enough to set a standard. Because here's the thing that gets missed in a lot of these sexual conversations is guys do what's worked for them.
Yes.
So if a nigga hits you with some bullshit game and you sitting there like, what?
Yeah.
At a certain age, it's worked before and it's worked more than once. So it's like, yo, this is my go-to.
Right. No, I see
So
that.
I look forward to having those real conversations with my kids because they deserve it so they can, you know, not be sexually stupid until they're like 23.
Right. And I think I grew up in a house that was very open. However, I think it could also be because I as a function of my personality and not necessarily my parents' approach, where like I'm really about to ask my mom crazy questions. Because in my head, I'm like, well, my mom's the expert. Like, because truth be told, right? Like if a parent doesn't talk to a child about it, their friends will talk to them about it. And peers, not great because they're the same age as
Virgins.
right. And but also like your 16-year-old friend has only been on this earth 16 years. So any wisdom they provide is not going to be great. You should be talking to your parents about it because they've been here longer and they've also been through many of these experiences and can give you, like you said, real life advice from a perspective of a man or a woman. I also appreciate my dad for that fact. I'll also ask him crazy questions and he'll say, Kyle, you're making me uncomfortable or I don't want to talk about this, but I'll keep pressing forward and I will get an answer. And I'd rather have an answer from my dad about something about a man than I necessarily might want to have from my mom because she's not a dude. She's not necessarily thinking that way. But it's also like the race conversation, right? Like you don't want to talk about race with your kids until da-da-da, but it's like, I think babies can recognize difference in face. Definitely by age 5, children ascribe characteristics by race, can do that by race, but at 5. So you don't want to have the conversation until 12, but your child's been thinking about it since 5 and they haven't had any guidance for 7 years. The same with sex. Sex, it's on TV, it's on social media, anywhere you go. So
it's in your house.
In your house, the earlier you can talk to your children about it, the better. And from coming from like the research world, like all the data says if you start early, they're more likely to not get pregnant when they don't want to be pregnant, not get STIs, things like be able to advocate for condom use. If you actually talk to your kid early, like you don't have to hope and pray, like you can actually safeguard your child by talking to them.
So you say that and I'll say the one thing that my mom did, she always left the door open for the conversation.
Okay, yeah.
From like 12, 13. Like once I had like sex ed at school, I was like, hey mom, we got sex ed at school, blah blah blah. You need to sign this permission so I can have this class. After that, the door became open. Now she wasn't gonna start the conversation, and younger me wouldn't start that conversation. But because of that, I think that I was more sexually responsible than some because it was never viewed as taboo in the house as far as the act of it. But the conversation about it was one of those like, I mean, if you ask, and I'm going to talk to you about it, but we ain't going to have this conversation if you don't need
Yeah.
it.
I guess it's like, so the national age of sexual debut, which is what researchers call losing your virginity, is like 12 or 13. So you would want to get ahead of the conversation, regardless of when it's offered in high school. If the national average is 12, 13, like you might want to start talking to your kid at like 10, 11. Just about like, these are different body parts. Like, you know, you can start off with that. Like, these are just different body parts.